The sun is setting, but I have the feeling there's still enough light to do this without other lights on, then the screen flickers less. We're going over the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Let's talk some more about Stoicism. Here I think is a particularly nice one. This is section 13 from book 11. Someone despises me, that is his concern. But I will see to it that I am not found guilty of any word or action deserving contempt. Will he hate me? That is his concern. But I will be kind and well-intentioned to all, and ready to show this very person what he is failing to see, not in any criticism or display of tolerance, but with genuine goodwill, like the famous Phocion, if, that is, he was not speaking ironically. This should be the quality of our inner thoughts, which are open to the God's eyes. They should see a man not disposed to any complaint and free of self-pity. And what harm can you suffer if you yourself at this present moment are acting in kind with your own nature and accepting what suits the present purpose of universal nature? A man at full stretch for the achievement, this way or that, of the common good. Well, there's a lot to say about that, I think. But as always, I'll try to be brief and as focused as I can be. We start off with something that is inherently Stoic, right? A very Stoic idea. Someone despises me, that's his concern. You hate me, that's your problem, not mine. Why? Because if you hate me, how is that really my concern? But also, right, because you have to be careful with these things, because Stoicism is not simply not caring, right? Stoicism is about realizing what is and what is not up to you. If someone has made up their minds that they dislike you, hate you, despise you, etc., then it is fairly unlikely in my mind that you're going to be changing their thoughts anytime soon. But unfortunately, you cannot always walk away from that. You cannot always walk away from that. Sometimes you can. If there's a stranger, this is an absurd example, but if there's a stranger in the supermarket who comes up to you and says, "God, you're ugly, I really hate you," then you can say, "Okay," and then you move away and you'll never see that person again. This is not a problem. But it becomes a problem when you are dealing with people that you cannot walk away from. That could be anyone. It could be probably not friends, right? But I mean, it could be relationships that you can't get away from, such as, say, work colleagues, people that you have to work with. It doesn't matter whether you like them or not. The reality is you have to work with them, so you have to manage them, right? So in such a situation, I think that the strategy that Marcus Aurelius proposes here is a very interesting one, which is, if you dislike me, despise me, hate me, primarily that's your problem. But here's part of the solution. If you are, again, being very Stoic about this, and that means that you are trying to do good, trying to be virtuous, trying to do all the right things, avoiding all the bad things, what is there for that other person to hate you for? Hate may be a strong word here, but to dislike you for. Well, if it's your personality, but your personality is actually not obnoxious, of course, part of Stoicism is then to figure out, am I obnoxious? Because if I am, well, then, yeah. I mean, then they may have a point, right? But if it is not that, well, then it's up to that other person to learn to deal with your issues. Now, here, too, you have to be very careful. You cannot say, well, I'm obnoxious, but this is how I like to be, so that's your problem. That's not Stoic. Remember that Stoicism is founded on, you have to be virtuous, and a virtuous person is not obnoxious. Right? That can't be. You can't be wise and temperate and all these things and also be obnoxious, really, unless you continuously, for example, complain to other people about how they are not virtuous enough. But a Stoic would not necessarily do that because that is up to them to figure out. Remember? And then there is maybe some opportunity for you to occasionally say, maybe what you should potentially consider doing is, etc. But that's a different discussion. So if you work and live in such a way that there is no real reason for another person to be offended by you, and they are still offended, then isn't that their problem? I mean, what can you do if you're trying to do your best? And again, this is founded in you have to be actually doing your best. This breaks down if you don't do your best and just do whatever you want, and then if people complain about you not actually, so to speak, fulfilling your duties, and then you say, yeah, well, that's your problem, right? That doesn't work that way. Then you're not being stoic about it. Then you're just being an asshole. So that's a different issue. So the idea, I think, is interesting and is quite simple. Be a good person. And if you genuinely try to be a good person and people still dislike you, again, it has to be a genuine effort to be a good person. But if people then still dislike you, then it is up to them, right? Then it is up to them to learn to handle what they can't stand in you. And this reflection is very important. It's important to be able to reflect like that. For example, I just recently I rewatched one of my old videos, and it was a very old video. It was not the whole video, it was just a part of, the whole video is old because you can't just have part of the video, although the last part of that video was less old than the start of the video. But anyway, realistically though, I was watching was a video I did where I answered personal questions because I had 400 plus 5 videos uploaded. This is a long time ago. This was quite a couple of years ago that I recorded that video. And I watched it. I don't like watching my own videos. I really don't. I don't. Because I find them boring and obnoxious. But in any case, the older ones are the worst. My voice is a bit different. My intonation is different. And I find myself very obnoxious. For example, I'm very serious here. Pardon me. For example, my mannerisms, the specific way that I move my face like this, etc. I find it obnoxious. And I'm very long-winded. Now, I like to talk. So this is a bit of part of me, but I have learned to tone it down. If I had been doing these kinds of videos back in the day, these would all be an hour long, easily. Now, that would be a problem. Again, that may be up to other people, but I find myself obnoxious. So when people comment on, especially my older videos, saying, you are so long-winded, why don't you get to the point? Well, then they're right. And when I read that, I still get the sort of flash of annoyance of, well, you know. But then I also think, yeah, but they're also right. Because it took me 10 minutes to get to the point in a review, for example. So in that regard, I have changed. What I'm trying to say is, you have to also be critical of yourself. And you cannot just say, well, I'm doing my best, so I can do whatever I want, and if you don't like it, that's your problem. Again, that's not how this game works. You have to be able to reflect on your own behavior and do what you can to not give other people that opportunity, really, to dislike you. And the better you're able to do that, I think the more virtuously you're living. Now, the final thing I wanted to say, because this could easily lead into, so does that mean that you should then bend over backwards for everyone? No, it does not. No, it does not. And this is a discussion I sometimes have with people when occasionally some comment rubs me the wrong way and I respond to that and I post that on Instagram. Then people say, well, if you were a Stoic, then you would... Don't forget, Stoicism is not about bending over backwards. It's not about not feeling anything. It's not about not being affected by things. But it's about controlling that as well as you can, right? If you would never be affected by anything that anyone would tell you, then either you're a Stoic sage or you're a psychopath. Maybe both. Who knows? Because we're people, and we have feelings. And sometimes our feelings get hurt. And that's okay. Stoicism is about learning to manage that, learning to act in such a way and to take things in such a way that you don't get so upset. But it doesn't mean don't get upset at all. It means you get less upset. It's an important distinction that sometimes I think people forget about. Anyway, what harm can you suffer if you yourself at this present moment are acting in kind with your own nature and accepting what suits the present purpose of universal nature, a man at full stretch for the achievement, this way or that, of the common good? If that's what you strive for, you try to be the best person you can be, you try to act for the common good, you do so virtuously, how can anyone take offense? Think about it. I always like to hear your thoughts, so please feel free to leave me something in the comments. I hope this was useful. I shall return next week for more talk about Stoicism. Thanks for